The meta. As it was 12 years, it's hard to boil this down to a short post. My wife and I have been married around 14 years. A couple years in, we had a kid. I was working a weird night shift and finishing my degree, and before we had our kid, I didn't mind that she'd go to happy hour for several hours. It wasn't my scene even on nights I didn't work late. I had gone to a few happy hours and met her colleagues at work parties. A couple years after we had our first kid, she was going out with 3 women and 1 man, a divorcee, whom I met at a Halloween party. I was now working 7 to 3, and wife started going to happy hours with the same few people, including the divorcee. As she seemed to have to work late most nights, she'd also go to happy hour for 3 or 4 hours, always saying I only had 3 beers. I didn't have a problem with her blowing off steam, but I told her that I was uncomfortable with her hanging out with the divorcee. She would often bring him up in conversation, and I said that it seems like an emotional affair. She cried after I said that but agreed not to see him anymore. A year later, we had another kid. A couple years after I started a business that operated about 8 months a year, then I did freelance writing during the off-season. We actually had to hire a nanny when she went back to work, but the nanny was always off at 3 p.m. when I got home. After the kids went to bed, I had at least 2 hours of work to do on computer. It seemed every day. My wife had an excuse for why she was late: traffic, the train, a meeting went late, in addition to the happy hours. She was off of work by 5 p.m., but rarely home by 7 p.m. She'd come home to me being pissed and resentful, and we'd avoid each other until she went to bed and I could finish work. Months later, I took on an additional 3 hours of work, so every night I was getting 4 hours of sleep, going home to the kids, making dinner, waiting for her to get home and help get the kids to bed, then go our separate ways. I lost my business partner and was taking on the business alone, and it started to fall apart. A bunch of equipment failures drained all of my business savings, and I had to close 3 months early. I had to take odd jobs just to pay winter bills and was looking to lease it, sell it, or liquidate it. Things were collapsing all around me, and she was later, had more obligatory work functions, and would only have a beer at happy hour. Yes, there was one Friday when her parents had the kids while I was installing an appliance, and I texted her to see if she could pick the kids up as the install was going long. Just finishing up, she replied, so I called her office number. "Us out of the office. Please leave a message." I text her telling I know she's not in the office, and she calls explaining that she's at a very important work function for a superior. She apologized, saying didn't want to stress you out. We never addressed it, but she left her Google account open on the computer. I just had to compare her location data to where she said she was at the time. It was bar after bar, and I found that she'd leave work an hour or 2 early to make it seem like she didn't go out at all. She worked in a downtown area, so the locations of bars were also hotels, making it impossible to know if she was at bars or hotels. Sometimes, it would be an hour in the middle of the day at what looked like a hotel. She also had an hour lunch at a hotel bar on Valentine's Day. Sometimes, I'd find bar receipts for those days. Sometimes I wouldn't find anything. So, I downloaded phone records into spreadsheets and looked up the numbers. Among other men she worked with, divorcee correlated with bank and location records. I called her friend to ask her if she knew anything, telling her my suspicion, and she had to intervene. My wife actually told me she had to go to 2 final happy hours, one in which was leaving at noon and drinking all day with her 3 female friends and the divorcee. Then she'd change. As it was feeling like the end, we ended up in marriage counseling, the marriage counselor telling us we each needed our own counselors or therapists as well. We had trouble with insurance with the marriage counselor, and of course, only I kept going to counseling. However, she seemed to have stopped her behaviors, going out, and lying. She moved to a department where she only worked with women, and they weren't involved with her past at all, and divorcee was with someone else and left the company. I eventually felt safe, saying if you want, you could try a happy hour with your new work friends. She said, "No, I don't really want to." "Okay," I said. I had noticed a few weird I had to drive so-and-so home things that seemed odd. She left her phone at home one day, and it only took about 10 seconds of peeking at her text to reveal she had been going to happy hours again. I called her at work and confronted her, and she said, "You got me. I'm just a liar." This hurt me so much more than before, because it seemed like she was willing to throw our marriage in the trash and ruin my trust forever just to go out after work. I had my counselor act as our mediator, and my wife talked her way out of it over 3 weeks. My counselor agreed that she was in the wrong, but that it was my fault for jumping to conclusions due to my self-esteem, even though my self-esteem had been destroyed by someone who went out drinking while my business fell apart, continued seeing a man I asked her not to, and gambling her marriage for her social life. I had her take an emotional affair test, and her results said, "No question about it, you're having an emotional affair and your marriage is closer to divorce than you realize. You're probably in denial about the depths of your unfaithfulness, but rest assured that you have broken the trust of your spouse." She remains in denial. We agreed to move, and she'd have 2 to 3 days in the office and work from home the rest of the time, but then lockdown forced her whole company to work from home. Her department was eliminated, but she was moved to lead a new team. All men. I can hear her in meetings, plenty of talk about personal life with these men. Her position required quarterly travel for 2 to 3 days before lockdown. So when she goes back to the office, not only do I have to fear clandestine happy hours, but I have to worry about weekends away. A couple weekends ago, she went to a cabin with 2 women from the bad times and was out of contact for 24 hours, bringing me right back. I avoided conflict and had to work through the night after she got home. And listening to her morning meeting with some dude just set me off. I told her we'd never rebuild trust, and that it shouldn't be my job to teach her how I'd never trust her again, how I'd go to my grave not knowing just if, but how many times she cheated on me going all the way back to before we had children. She explained that, throughout most of it, she thought she was entitled to go against my wishes because I was being anti-feminist. She has no idea what it feels like to think her partner is cheating, so she justified everything she did as rejecting my male authority. She knew after the second round of happy hour deception how much it had destroyed me as a person, but she wasn't doing anything to build back trust. She thought abstinence was enough. I told her I didn't want to live past 55, when our children would be adults, on their feet, because I mean nothing to her, and told her if you told me you slept with 10 other men, I'd always wonder who the 11th was. It just doesn't matter, even if she knows how, why she was wrong. I'll never know if her mind will find her way to justify more. She has a millennial sense of entitlement with a boomer carelessness about how her actions hurt others. She doesn't understand that the emotional affair and all of the other lies make the possibility of far worse being possible and inevitable in my mind. I don't want to leave my kids, and at this point if I left, it wouldn't be to start over. I'm a piece of crap. So, I'd probably just accelerate drinking myself to death. I figure I'll be a good dad, finish raising my kids, leave my life insurance to them at some point in their 20s, at which point they'll see me how their mother does, anyways, so they won't be too upset. I guess I'll just say not to raise entitled kids, and to stay away from entitled feminists, who excuse their selfishness because of the feminism. I did put my foot down, she agreed. What she really did was get really good at hiding it. As far as it is going physical, I know 4 others who work there who said it'd be impossible for her to cheat without everyone knowing. But her having lunch with a co-worker wouldn't raise red flags, because they don't know I've told her it's not okay. When she failed the emotional affair test, this wasn't until she was lying and going out again 2 years later, it was like she hadn't thought of how inappropriate it was. It's like I have to walk her through how things affect others to get past the enormous sense of entitlement, especially when risking it all for a beer with women, which I encouraged her to do. She didn't need to lie. My first day of kindergarten, a bunch of hippies came in and told us we were going to be the most amazing generation. We could be anything we want because everyone is the same. Women are told that it's their turn, and men need to step aside. Most of the women I knew growing up are $500,000 in debt with a law degree and don't even practice, then blame the system because they aren't famous billionaire astronauts. They're literally programmed with narcissistic traits. Bars, hotels, this is data I got from her phone, and there are several issues with the findings. She works in a downtown area, and 2 hotels are connected to her building, and the area is surrounded by hotels, like any big city. Google improved their accuracy recently, which showed I got false pings because she had lunch at some chain that's in a tower that contains a hotel. Then, there's the legitimate hotel visits that were conferences or ceremonies the company held. This is the data that busted her going to bars. About get a lawyer. Her family is in the 8-digit in worth. My parents, divorced, share a net worth in the 5-digit range. My neighbor has a 5-bedroom house and lost custody to his ex who has a 2-bedroom townhouse. 3 kids, and he gets every another weekend. I've been an entrepreneur and investor for 10 years. Not sure if you know this, but credit agencies and banks don't like unpredictable income. Some months I bring in 40, some months I bring in 0 net. I have a car because I paid in full, can't buy a 150 business property without collateral, can't get a mortgage. If a miracle divorce happened and I got to keep half our liquid assets, I might have a down payment on a condo on the corner of Stab and Shot, but not that precious steady yet lower income. Same with rent, and if you haven't noticed, the housing market is in a huge bubble propped up by the Fed propping up banks in exchange for interest on, you guessed it, bundled mortgages. About feminism, she said it was the whole feminist sense of entitlement, and I fully bought into that. She's now on the fence on if women should vote. About kids in broken home, our kids have no idea of anything going on. The situations like where is mom are long gone, and we aren't actively resentful towards each other in front of them. They get order and routine from her, and social, creative, philosophical from me. That balance vanishes if I see them 4 days a month. My father abandoned us while my mother had postpartum depression and I was neglected and inconsequential after that. My father sought his own happiness, and now lives in a 300 sq foot apartment in a retirement community, partially paid for because he's disabled from decades of being happy. I'm not being passive. I threw her out until she booked personal counseling for her compulsive lying. That's a lot of what I've seen so far. Do what's best for you. No, I have children, and what's best for them isn't a massive upheaval in their home. Being a father takes quite a bit of stoicism that seems alien to our modern culture, but if you read statistics on children of divorce, the negative results are staggering. There's also the culture she was raised in, daycare, latchkey life because career is more important than parenting. She went into corporate America after being taught the world owed her something, that she wouldn't let a man tell her what to do, her thought process after continuing friendship with Guy, and that her big corporate job status entitled her to go to happy hours. What's best for her? She only focused on what she thought she deserved, so much that she risked losing her marriage twice. It took a lot of time to break that programming, realize she was wrong, etc. But sometimes I take in the situation of the whole relationship and feel pretty down. I see a lot of she probably had a physical affair. You don't see how creating that scenario in the spouse's mind without actually doing it is more complicated. Replying to she cheated, DNA test your kids then go buy a mansion and live grand. Get real. If this ends in divorce, I'd be mentally ill to ever have a relationship with a woman again. My comment, validation that they repeatedly cheat for years, then they excuse their cheating with feminism. BTW, nothing she said or did is feminist. It doesn't sound like you are controlling. It sounds like you did your best to parent, keep the house together and work as much as you could give what your business went through. Can I recommend you see a divorce lawyer even if you are determined not to divorce, just to get a rough idea about what you would both be entitled to? I think it would be worth it to see who custody would be likely to go to and what scenario you might want to go forward, if you decide to stay married but not together under the same roof. Story 2. I just feel betrayed, hurt and lost for words. I devoted my life to my husband. Married at 21, this marriage hasn't been good for me, but I didn't know any better. He was my love and he treated me nice when we first met and got married. Fast forward some years into marriage, I experienced financial and emotional abuse from him but not infidelity, so I thought. I was too stupid and naive. It all began during the lockdown when I had asked my hubby to work from home. Since I have suppressed immune system, he's in IT industry so it was okay. As he began working from home, I noticed his phone would start going off with text messages. That never happened when he's at home. So, I'd take our dog on walk for an hour. I'd return home with dog, and my hubby would tell me, something broke at work, it's not working, I need to go stop by work to fix it. I was like okay, well, you do what you have to do, trusted him 100%. Here's where the suspicion started growing on me. He'd go to work not at that time when he'd tell me something is broken. He'd go to work for 6 p.m. when everyone had left work. Before going for 6 p.m., he'd jump into shower and put on fresh shirt and pants. I'd asked him, if you are going to fix a computer at work, why do you take shower for 6 p.m. when nobody is at the office? He'd already taken shower in the morning so he'd have another shower same day. He told me because my co-workers might be at work and I don't want to smell bad. But he'd take those showers every time he'd go to work for 6 p.m. When I'd ask him why you don't go for 2 p.m., why not 3 p.m., his reply was I am waiting for people to leave so I don't catch it. Which didn't make any sense. So fast forward, every other day my husband would tell me that something broke at the office every time after I'd return with dog from walk, and he'd get very excited and his mood was changing for the better. He'd go to work and he'd spend there 3 to 4 hours at the time. He'd tell me he's fixing stuff. He returned home twice at 9:30 p.m. with his underwear pulled up to his upper back and his polo shirt was tucked into his underwear. It was on his back and he didn't see it. His co-worker was texting him too and he'd walk with his phone as if he was waiting for someone else's text. I had a talk with my husband and I was emotional, crying, but not yelling nor screaming. My husband was empathetic and told me, honey, I'd never hurt you like that. I never cheated on you and never will. I wanted to believe him so bad. So, I did, but his behavior was screaming infidelity. Constant late meetings at work. Every time it's about the 6 p.m. At 6 he'd call me and tell me we have a meeting and I don't know how long it will take. Thus, by telling me how long it will take he was buying himself time to come home whenever. One time I called him at work. He was very happy laughing on the phone. I asked him to turn on video call. He did. I heard women's giggling and laughter but didn't see other women in his office. I just heard them. My husband's upper lip began to twitch uncontrollably. I had asked him what was wrong with his lip. He didn't notice anything. He moved to another closed room where servers, computers, are in closed door to talk to him. I'd asked him why he went to talk to me into another room. His reply was so others would not hear us. But I wasn't asking much. I just wanted to see what was going on. There was no meeting. Just random office women giggling with my husband. To fast forward, with all this crap that's been going on and my gut feeling told me that my husband had been lying to me for some time, I went ahead and bought a blue-black light. The light allows you to see semen, body fluids under special light. I inspected my husband's work pants for stains, body fluids a month ago and it was clean. Now a month later, yesterday, I inspected his work pants again and found 2 huge near growing area stains that looked to me like sperm. I will test it for semen fluid because my husband is denying ever cheating on me and all I want is closure and to move on if indeed he's cheating on me. I can't force myself to live with lying, cheating spouse. I am not even talking years of emotional, financial abuse I endured from him. Half a year later, my husband told me to quit my business and to become a housewife, which I did. We had a brand new baby and I was stay-at-home mom, housewife. Everything was great for the first year, then I started noticing red flags with finances. I was not allowed to buy anything, even clothes for myself. I could not go to get manicure done nor a haircut because there was always "we have no money for your nails," etc. This is financial abuse, but I don't want to talk about financial abuse right now. I thought it was normal till next year when I had discovered that my husband had spent on himself thousands of dollars. Besides all that crap, the lockdown really showed me that he was cheating on me too. He never confessed and never showed any signs except that for 3 years he was always staying late at work for 2 to 3 hours every day. He'd tell me at 6 p.m. I'd get texts from him something broke at work. I have to fix it. I don't know how long it would take. I became suspicious when things were breaking every single day and he'd come home at 7:30 p.m. or 8:30 p.m. daily instead 6:30. When lockdown happened, I had asked him to work from home since my health wasn't great and I was high risk. He became very mad and agitated with me. He was screaming that only he would be the one who'd work from home. Back then I didn't realize that he wanted to go to his work to see his mistress at work, his co-worker. So, he was working from home and 2 days into his work from home he started telling me something broke at work. I have to go. He'd go at 4 p.m. and he'd take a long, nice hot shower before he'd leave and he'd be gone for 3 to 4 hours. During that time, he was not reachable by phone nor by text. Then he'd return home in his underwear. His briefs were pulled up to his chest, on his back. He didn't see, but I had asked him, "What is this? Is this how you walk?" He'd reply, "I guess that's how I walk in the office." His office is 98% females. There are only 3 men working for the company. He, another elderly guy, and the owner of the company who is working from home from another state. So, my husband would come home with his polo shirt untucked from his pants. It was never untucked in 23 years of his career, and then it was untucking every other day, like hanging out of his pants. He always had leather belts supporting his pants. I began to suspect infidelity. When I tried to be intimate with him on a Friday, he'd tell me I can't have sleep together on Friday because I get tired at work. He works at his computer in his own office. I understood that he was seeing someone else on Friday and that's why he didn't have energy for me. He'd also told me that if you have a friend guy, you can go sleep with him. I guess he thought that if I'll go cheat on him, he will not feel as guilty. To cut a long story short, it's been going on for 2 years. Recently, like 3 weeks ago, I found on his phone his worker's photo, fully clothed and slightly smirking with a smile. He took her photo. I asked him, "Why did you take her photo? Why do you have her photo on your phone?" His reply was, "I don't know how that photo got on my phone. I am so tired of all these lies that I can't take it anymore. Why would a married man take a photo of his co-worker in their office and keep it on his phone? I suspect he fantasizes about her and looking at her photo. My question is, why would a married man take a photo of his coworker and keep that photo on his phone? Should I approach her and ask her if she's sleeping with my husband? She will probably not reply. She's married with 2 children. I will not go to her. I have not told him of my suspicions. My only problem right now, that every time I earn an income per month, he finds a reason to take my money. Like all of it, even cents. He says we don't have enough money to pay the bills, so he takes my money. He's making very good income. All my friends don't have words how it's even possible for him not to have enough money to pay the bills. 2 weeks ago, our electricity was cut off. I was in shock because he pays the bills. I called him at work and asked him what's going on. He said I've been paying the bill, yet when I called the light company, they've told me that the bill hadn't been paid for 5 months. Yet all this time he'd been showing to me all our bills and how his salary isn't enough to pay the bills. Yet he hadn't been paying the bills. I also found that he hadn't paid our mortgage as well, but he lied to me that he'd been paying, taking my earned money to cover the mortgage payment. In reality, he hadn't been paying the mortgage. I need to start saving some money to get out, because after 18 plus years of being a housewife and a stay-at-home mother, I don't have many choices when it comes to jobs. I do have several jobs right now that aren't 100% stable, but every single time I earn something, he finds a reason to spend my money on. 6 months ago, he took my $6,000 and had purchased for himself a brand new car. He'd been buying himself a brand new car every 3 years. I have been driving an old car for 5 years ago. My car is 11 years old. He shows me printouts and I don't understand any of it. Last time he printed for me my gym membership twice and I've been paying for it myself. I also buy my own clothes, shoes, and buy clothes for our son too. What he shows me, statements, is complete BS. Besides, I've told him I don't understand any of it and he smiles and says, "I know." I had asked him why my gym membership is on that printout twice. I pay for it with my own money, what I try to make. His reply was, "That's how the app printed it out. I did not do it on purpose." Part of me wants to believe him and part of me understands that he's just lying to me about everything. Turned out he hadn't paid to light company in 5 months, but he told me that he'd been paying, and while he told me he'd been paying the bills, it turned out he hadn't. Then the question is, where did the money go? I earned last month $15, not much. He took everything and told me to cover to pay our bills. He makes more than $100 a year. We live in very modest home and I drive an 11-year-old car. We have old furniture that we got from our neighbor for free. He doesn't buy me anything at all. So, I just don't understand where the money is going. He's been obsessed with the stock market, accounts, investments, and dirty videos. I've noticed that many bills to go his work address. He'd made Amazon purchases that never arrived at our home. I only found his receipts in his trash can on his computer, and they were screenshots and did not show what exactly the item was. It just said arriving X date. That day came and went by and nothing ever arrived. He's a manager at his work, so it probably arrived at his work. Attorney told me $25,000 to get the ball rolling, and if she needs to go to court it's $350 divided by hour. Since he takes away my money or trying to force me to make large purchases, so I am constantly in debt. I could not afford an attorney last year. This year I am more self-focused and I've saved up enough just to hire a lawyer, but no, the $350 divided by hour. Right now, I am trying to get a job, a physical job, so it would get me a sense of some financial security. When I'll file for divorce, I'd need to move out because he makes faces. He does this emotional stonewalling and not talking to me when he doesn't like something, and it doesn't go well with my emotions. I start crying, I don't sleep at night, I feel like someone beat me up with 1001 baseball bats. Then in morning he is hugging me as if nothing had happened and tells me I love you. At times I feel like I am going crazy. Everything I tried to have begged him to confess, he tells me, you imagined all that. You watched too many movies. I've never said that. Last week he told me instead of going on vacations to Florida, I went with our son back then all 4 times when our son was young. I took him to see the Orlando and to Daytona Beach. He told me you should have been paying your medical bills instead of going on vacation. In 25 years' time, I was on vacation only 5 times. I worked all other years, part-time as a housewife. We have 1 child. The child is a teenager who's about to go to university. He told our son, you take a loan and you put yourself through school. Our son is ready to do just that. I feel depressed that I can't help our son. I am his parent. My husband gets agitated when I start questioning things about bills, payments. He makes his face, and psychologically it's good for me. I've lost my sleep. I think about what's going on. If I don't give him money that I've earned in 1 month, he then says, I'll take out of our savings account then. Last year he run our savings account into the ground. It looked like he did it intentionally. In 3 months, we went from $18,000 to $25,000 in savings. I don't know where the money is going. He is doing the finances. I didn't know he didn't pay for 5 months for an electric bill. He must have gotten notifications and disconnection notices, and he told me I've never gotten any notifications. I find it hard to believe. All bills, credit cards are on his name and his name alone. I called the light company. They told me we can't discuss the bill with you since you are not on the bill. I told them I don't need to discuss it since I have it in front of me. I need to make the payment so you can turn back on our electricity because I have a kid living in the house who needs his computer, warm house, and warm water. They told me the bill was due $604. I called my husband and he told me he paid the bill and doesn't know what's going on. 10 minutes later the light company told me he hasn't paid the bill in 5 months. He lied again. He told me he pays the bills, but in reality, he does not. Now he took from me the $604, thus telling me that we had an expected bill due and we have no money to cover that bill. He told me you need to contribute to the family. I've taken our son on vacation 4 times and solely paid for it with my own hard-earned money. He didn't give a dime on any of our vacations, yet he has the nerve to tell me you don't contribute to the family. I also do all the house chores. If I don't take trash out, he wouldn't do it. The only reason that I continue to live with him, so it buys me time to get a job. It's a physical job and I am in my late 40s and it's not what I used to do, not in my career, but at least it will give me sense of security so I'll be able to financially support myself for at least at beginning of this process. I am sure the whole divorce thingy is going to be the bad and the ugly. Yesterday I saw on his computer an internet page open. Great. So, you want to refinance the house? I've asked him what is this about. The reply was, I click on ads so I make a bit of money from clicking on the ads. The page that was open was a financial service for refinance, loan against mortgage. I've been living with him for 25 years and I gave up my career. I am very afraid how am I going to be able to go on my own without any savings. It will take a while to divorce, but having nothing in bank, other than lawyer startup fees, is scary. My goal is to get a job so I'll feel some sort of security, and then I'd know that I'd get a paycheck. It's not going to be easy, but what I have right now is a lot worse, I think. He has the money and those who have the money have the power. He's living his double life and continues to lie to me with everything. Yet he goes to bathroom, crying. When I tell him I want a divorce, I think that's manipulation too. Here's the problem. He opened many accounts in every bank possible. Like you drive on a street and there's a bank, he has an account there. He's very good with money and manipulating money. I found a note on his notepad. It said move 45,000. What 45,000? I don't know about it. It did not say move from where to where and where this money came from. He got a raise at work. He's an executive now, but his salary is still the same as it was 4 years ago. I've talked to a lawyer who promised me the moon, but first they promise you the moon, then after you pay them large sum to get the ball rolling, then they start singing a different tune like it's too difficult to trace the money or something else. I've contacted other lawyers and left messages. Nobody returned my phone calls. I'll try again. He also has a side gig he does a lot of work for, but he says the gig hasn't paid him for 5 months, yet he does work for him. I find it highly suspicious. He also has a co-worker's woman's photo on his phone. I asked him, please tell me why a married man would have another woman's from his workplace photo on his phone. He told me, you make it sound bad. I told him, go ask any married woman how they'd like their husbands having photos on their phones of random women. He told me he does not know how the photo appeared on his phone. I don't know who he thinks I am, but it's total BS. Then he told me, go and delete that photo. I told him I did not put that photo there to delete it. Update: I tried very hard to save this marriage, but unfortunately, I cannot. My husband continues to cheat on me and flat out denies it. He says you are crazy delusional, but he cheats at work during his work hours. I don't know if it's his co-worker or a prostitute. On Tuesday he came home with his underwear pulled up to his chest and his work trousers barely on, even though he has a belt. Last week he came home and his collar on his polo shirt was all messed inside out on back, thus telling me that he took off his shirt during his work. But when he left home, he was all neat. I am very scared. I am almost 50. I was a housewife. I have to start a brand new career. I went back to school to get a degree, but it will take at least 2 years. I am very afraid of loneliness. But at the same time, I understand that I can't live in denial and pretend like nothing is happening. He obviously made his choice, yet lying to me and tells me I love you with his underwear pull up almost to his chest. He'd never came home looking like that other than for 3 years his work clothes gave me clues. I also believe there's a sperm stain on his other work trousers. I have not taken it to the lab yet, but not sure if I should for the divorce. I was married once only and lived with this person for 25 years and thought that we had a good marriage. It's devastating. About a month later, I filed for a divorce 3 weeks ago. I did not tell my husband. Why? He had been sleeping with his co-workers and he didn't tell me about it. Why should I tell him that I actually went and filed for divorce? I want him to find out from papers served. When I filed for divorce, I stopped treating him like a friend, relative, etc. Does anyone know how long does it take for husband, wife to be served with papers? He's not telling me anything, and I could of course call my lawyer, but she charges $200 per phone call. Weeks later, today, 2 weeks after the credit card accident, I find out that he hasn't been depositing his salary into our joint account. Our joint account has barely enough to pay next month's mortgage. Mortgage is in his name, but all 3 of us still live in the house, my husband, I and our son. I don't know what his plan is, but looks like he wants to kick me to curbside after 20 plus years in marriage. I called my lawyer today, left a message, but not sure if it will get to her or not. Is there something can be done to prevent this financial abuse? 2 days ago, he refused to buy our son a $7 ice cream at the grocery store, telling our son it was expensive. He's earning more than $125 a year plus bonuses. What was I thinking when I filed? I was thinking that I cannot take anymore his endless affairs with co-workers. He wasn't even hiding it anymore. I could not take him lying all the time, every single word. I could not take him doing whatever he wanted to do with whomever, but not with his wife. I could not take anymore his financial and emotional abuse. I had to ask him to be intimate with me while other men have told me how attractive I am. I've never cheated on him with anyone, but he has plenty of times. I found his texting with ex-coworker and her sending him dirty photos. Why I filed for divorce? Was I supposed to sit quiet and pretend like my life is great? I filed because I was miserable and I cried every day and he did not care. My comment: if your only child is in college, CS will likely not be a given, although your H may be ordered to share in or fully cover tuition costs. As for alimony, assuming you are not disabled, this is likely to be short-term, as there is nothing preventing you from seeking employment with a college-age child. Talk to your lawyer to gain a better understanding of what is likely to happen in your case. Frankly, I am surprised that he didn't have this conversation with you before filing.